Hey guys, so we're just going to be giving you some feedback on your presentation. First of all, we really appreciate that you guys kind of presented this together. I can see that you've used Discord, and obviously there's a little bit of a pause between. If this was ever going to be presented in the stream, I think like we all know that you'd edit that and so on, but we'll skim past that. That's fine. In terms of the actual scene itself, it's coming along really well. It's got a really nice kind of shape to it. I think it's a nice scale, a nice scope that you set yourself as well, and I think there's some really nice attention to detail in there. Some of the forms that you're making. Um, Great. um, cool. So for character,
Yeah, I think like the character's design is grand. It's just that it's sort of lacking some details, right? It looks pretty flat. Um, Particularly sitting next to Tove, there's all these little character traits there, like some badges, or hoodie's got a design on it. Obviously you've put this on, but original one does. And there's just more colors and stuff going on. Um, I would like to see like a different. It's hard to see in this screen, to be honest. I can see a slight different color here on the hot rim, but like some extra little details, particularly in terms of color. There's no darker shade of this sort of poncho sort of thing.
Yeah,
The internal part of the hood could maybe be a darker brown.
yeah,
Underneath, we'll have a
the
shadow.
Toves, it does that in the inside of the hood. You can kind
Yeah.
of see it just adds a bit of dimension to it.
I think also like if I just jump back to your inspiration, there's a lot more going on in those hoods, especially even that one where it's ripped and stuff like that. I think if you were to bring in some like ripped detail there and add some extra layers in general, just to help break up that like solid brown color.
I think the big thing for me is if we go between your concept, very rounded shoulders. You have kind of like big eyes ish, but if we go flip from this, and you can even see like on the trousers and stuff, you kind of like tapered them in, and so what and so whatnot. But on this one, you've just kind of done the regular trousers here. You have very kind of rectangular shoulders. You've drifted quite far away from your concept, and I feel like that's not because it's a style choice. I think that's because you've done that because maybe it's easier. I would definitely take a step back and try to refine some of those details. And if you look at the eyes, particularly when it's inside preview, like yes, they're big in your concept, but you can see they're kind of bulging here. So I would just push them in your head a little bit, or like tweak the shapes. That's not the case.
Yeah. Also, the nose is also not colored the same as the sort of rookie pipeline where you have the highlight on top and the shadow underneath. So it just comes across as like being really flat. And
Yeah.
that's the same with the eyelids as well. You haven't got any eyelashes for a color here, or like, um, yeah, it's mainly the eyelashes actually.
Yeah, eyelashes, lips, the nose highlight, the nose shadow.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
I think this mustache as well also could be, I know, shaped a little better. Um,
It almost looks like another chin.
yeah, it kind of looks like a weird small mouth up here.
Yeah,
I think
two
like having
mouths.
yeah.
maybe where it comes up and dips a little bit and then has that little
I think it's
sort
just
of twisted bit at the end that people
yeah.
always do. So I think like just shaping it a little bit better could make it look a little more interesting. Um,
Use bender formers. Try stuff out with sweet mesh. See what you can do with shapes. And document them all for your blog as well.
mhm. So again, just colors when it comes to like the boots, I would maybe have like a darker sort of sole on the boots and maybe use sweet mesh to make some laces, similar to the way the boots are in the other character.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's just adding those little bits of detail around the place, particularly color is going to help you get a lot of it. Um, and
Even having a look at like some of the ponchos here, you can see some of them have like little details to them, whether it's like kind of woven in stripes, stuff like this. Again, subtle pattern can really help with stuff to even make it feel like woven and so on. Like it's just a lot of flat color in that area that does kind of flatten your whole image. But if you have a subtle kind of pattern to it, you can see even with the Tove stuff, you've added your own custom stuff when you were doing that activity to retexture her. So it'd be nice to have the same level of detail there for your own character submission.
particularly even having like some sort of buckle or lace tie here, which they generally tend to have even in the concepts. It tends to have like some sort of decorative element in the center there. Or it's mainly this one, but I think adding it in yours will definitely help and just add that extra bit. And moving on to the other character, um, I think I've made a video with some feedback already on this with like in terms of the shoulders and like their shape. Um, so I'm not talking about it too much, but yeah, it's just too blocky at the minute. They need to be raised down and pushed in a bit. The boots are working really well, but again, the sole I would use a different texture for. Have a darker
Mhm.
brown on the bottom, Um,
A
and
heel as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is a slight heel. It's hard to
Aye.
see, but it's flat color.
You just can't see it. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, an extra color in here as well. So a dark brown for the sole, but even a light brown for like a little highlight maybe that exists around the
Yeah.
place.
Thing for me, I know that Daryl mentioned the shoulders and stuff, so I won't touch on that. But just where the wrists are, because you've got a soft cube straight into the hands, I would even like flatten that out so it looks more like a sleeve rather than it intersecting because it almost looks like gorilla arms, where you have the hands coming out of a
Yeah,
hairy
feel that.
arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's something to think about, and also just on your legs. Sometimes you can see when it's turning here, it's not quite connecting to the pelvis. Just make sure things are,
Intersecting
yeah,
properly.
exactly.
Um, moving on to the environment. I think the environment's working pretty well. Um,
Yeah, I think overall, guys, the environment has come together really well. Like the shape, composition of the shot. I definitely think that this weapon stand sticks out a little bit. It doesn't seem to really
Yeah.
be part of the scene.
I think the level of detail of it as well is just a little bit less than the other. Like I think the fireplace stands out really well. I think it's an appropriate level of detail. There's some really nice detail as part of that as well. Got good silhouette. There's a lot of nice things there. I think the kind of weapon rack's a little bit more base level.
the big thing that stands out to me in this shot would be this ladder that you've got. It's just really bright, and the rope connecting all the sort of steps on it is really really thick and chunky. Um, so yeah, I would maybe change some colors at least, and maybe look at the thickness of that
Yeah.
them ties.
Love the lighting. I think like the not the lights, but the chandeliers. That's going to be the lights. I think they're a really nice form. One thing I would have really liked to have seen is some different angles, just because I know you have the oven in here, but because you're viewing it from the back, you can't see that. So it'd be nice to see like what your other free renders would have been. I understand this is a cinematic one, but I would say stop it early, stop it here. Before it gets to this point where it's really far into the back of the oven. Is it that it's going to become a foreground element? If so, it's going to be all black. Is there other shots where it's fully textured? Just good to get an idea of that. Even with the beams and the roof, I think that's a very flat coloured area. It'd be nice to see the same level of details you have for the wall for that up there as well.
So this is the weapon rack again. I know it was described as like something that's sort of thrown together by this sort of hunters. But there's also like weird parts of like you've got a nail up here that doesn't actually connect into anything it trays through, which sort of gives that messy look, but it's also just a bit strange. Because the wood's even
Yeah,
intersecting up here. Um, but like the items are just floating on it, right?
Yeah.
They're like they're not even tall enough to sit in the stand itself,
yeah,
and there's nothing holding them, so it just looks really weird.
I think the big takeaway on something like this is you want to think again when you show this in, say, a portfolio, people aren't going to have the context of you explaining how it's put together. I think you need to assume if someone was to look at this from industry, are they going to assume that it's made by a character that threw it together, or are they going to think that you as an artist threw it together in a way that doesn't make logical sense?
also, I feel like the scale of the certain weapons feels off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like the spear, I think needs to be much bigger, actually touch the ground. Um,
this little mace type of thing, the
yeah,
the hilt of it or the handle is really really thick.
but the actual bludgeoning part's quite small.
Yeah,
It just feels a little off.
Yeah. Materials as well, they're not using unlit materials, so you might find that once you put that into unlit, you're losing a lot of that definition yet again. So make sure you're using a lambent material with incandescent and a diffuse to zero to really visualize that, because I think you'll find, especially with that kind of circular objects, it just loses a lot of that three dimensional aspect.
yeah, because there's no real edge detailing on the wood or anything here, so once it's flat, it's gonna pretty much just disappear into itself. Like using bevels and some extra cuts to break up little edges of the wood and stuff, just to make it look
Always,
more natural.
always make sure you have a character in the scale as well.
Yeah. This is working really well. Like it's one of the nicer elements in the scene. Um, I think maybe the stone overall could be darkened a touch, like all of it, just to sit better within the wooden cabin. Looking at this, it's very, very bright grays, and that's something you don't need to retexture. We can just sort of tint it, but it's overall this the shape and like the way you've sort of constructed it's really nice.
I agree. I think maybe the kind of wood where it's cut, having that kind of spiral in the middle of it, just kind of these areas here, could help.
Yeah, yeah.
That might come to with actually having like a spiral texture on part of its UV rather than that being associated with a swatch sheet. Another thing is maybe having the antlers just a little bit bigger as
Yeah, make them
well.
big grand. centerpiece, you know, like
Yeah.
this was off like this massive elk or whatever.
Exactly. The way you described it is like it's a trophy from this hunter, but the way that it's shown is like this hunter got a little baby deer. And he's like, this is my hunter.
It's Bambi. It's Bambi.
Yeah. Um,
Maybe some stuff on the mantelpiece as well. Clock,
Yeah.
like
yeah,
a
Some
small
clutter,
clock.
just general clutter, I think would
Yeah.
really help.
yeah, that's a good idea. These are looking grand as well. Like the pot looks really nice, but I feel like it's a bit. I think we've seen this before. It's a bit high poly for its shape and style of rookie. Again, not using sort of unlit materials, so it's just using the normal standard surface and rendered in Arnold. Make sure you're watching the videos on the Trello to follow the right rendering path and pipeline for your submission.
Yeah.
But the models are looking good. I think we talked about this of like making a little bit more stylized, you know, like this chute that goes up, you know, could have like cranks and uh, you know, not just be this solid, perfectly straight piece. You know, make it look a little bit quirky in a way. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I think overall, nicely put together. It's a piece that has a lot of promise to it. Overall, remember for your submission to be rendering things correctly. 1080 by 1920 for your submission. Use that series that Daryl put out there of how to get the turntables properly, how to get things properly rendered from Maya, and check those settings.
in Discord, yeah.
In Discord as well. But no, overall, good promise. I think you've highlighted some nice props. Just remember proper week for consistency and so on. And if it's the same quality and fully textured and finished, I think
Yeah.
it could be a really nice piece.
One last thing I'm gonna say is like you've got hunters, but I see zero bows, and like that's the hunter
Yeah.
tool, you know. So somebody should be making that. Either it's a prop artist or something, but it needs to be in there.
They,
Bow, arrows, and
no, they bludgeon Bambi.
yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, so like even like if I go back to your references, like all these have got some sort of ranged weapon because you know we don't sneak up and like knife a deer.
It's a deer.
Yeah, see like this one, every single one bow. So somebody should be making that.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.